Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our government contracting series, HUBZone certification process. We'll get started in just a minute. Got some folks joining us from the waiting room. My name is Heather Fay, and I am the Regional Program Director and the Botetourt Advisor for the Roanoke Regional Small Business Development Center. As we get started today, we are recording today's presentation. Our workshop is scheduled for 2 hours. If you would please keep your microphone muted. However, we do have closed captioning available if you would like that turned on, if you will select that in your Zoom menu. And we encourage you to use the chat if you've got questions for our presenter, Lisa Wood, or myself. You've got suggestions or recommendations, you'd like to introduce yourself to our colleagues here today. The chat is a great place to do that. And of course, you're welcome to take notes and jot down any questions or information that's relevant to you. And after the fact, we welcome you to schedule an advising appointment with one of the Small Business Development Centers or Lisa and her team at the PTAC office. All right. Today's workshop is made possible through a partnership with the Roanoke Regional Small Business Development Center, the Virginia Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity, and Virginia PTAC. We have been working on a full series, and I'll share the links to our previous workshops that we've offered over the last couple of months in the chat with you all, as well as in the follow-up email. A little bit about the Roanoke Regional Small Business Development Center. We're a small and mighty team that serves businesses throughout the greater Roanoke Valley, Franklin County, Allegheny Highlands, and the New River Valley. We offer confidential advising, education, workshops, and events, and online resources to help your business thrive. We encourage you to check out our website for all kinds of resources and articles and worksheets to help your business run smoothly. If you aren't in our service area, we welcome you to fill out our advisor match, and we can get you connected to the Small Business Development Center closest to you and your business, or you can send us an email and we can help you with that as well. If you haven't gotten matched with an advisor, we also encourage you to go through our advisor match process so you can be matched with the best advisor for you and your business. We work with businesses through all stages, whether you're just getting started, you're growing and expanding, or you're ready to exit, we are here to help you. The Roanoke Regional Small Business Development Center is funded in part through a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Small Business Administration and is supported by America's SBDC, the Virginia SBDC, and the Mason Enterprise Center at George Mason University. Pandemic-related capacity building grant funding has been provided by Go Virginia. Other funding has been provided by local administrations, economic development offices, organizations, and businesses that are all small business champions in your corner. A special thanks to our hosts, the Roanoke Regional Chamber of Commerce, for providing space and support for our work. We have 2 upcoming government contracting series workshops. The 8A certification process on July 12th, so in just a couple weeks, and then the WOSB ED-WOSB federal certification process on September 27th. In addition, here locally, the Roanoke City Public School System is offering a SWAM event this Thursday at 1 o'clock. I will post the registration information if you would like to attend. There is no charge, and that is happening this Thursday at 1. And JT Hodges, who is a buyer for the city schools, is coordinating an in-person event on Thursday. We'd love to see you there. All right, thank you so much for spending time with us today to work on your business. I'll encourage you to continue to engage with us after today's workshop so we can continue to support you on your journey. All right, the moment you all have been waiting for, it's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, Ms. Lisa Wood. Lisa is the statewide director of the Virginia PTAC, hosted by George Mason University, where she is also an adjunct professor of management. Prior to that, she served as a statewide director with the Connecticut and Ohio PTAC programs and was also a director for the Northwest Commission PTAC in Pennsylvania. Before joining the PTAC community, Lisa was a procurement specialist for Bechtel Plant Machinery Incorporated in the greater Pittsburgh area. In this role, Lisa performed contract administration and negotiation duties. She also recommended bidders, handled issue inquiries, negotiated bids, performed cost price analysis, and prepare comprehensive contracts letters to justify recommended contract actions. Lisa holds an MBA from the University of New Haven and a BSBA through the Robert Morris University of Pittsburgh, where she is also pursuing her PhD in instructional management and leadership. Lisa, thank you so much for being our guest presenter today. I've got a fresh notebook and a pen ready. I always learn so much at your workshops, and you're just an incredible resource. So I am going to stop sharing my screen and turn the microphone over to you.
All right, and let's see if I will be able to share and bring up what we need to see here. There it is. And get it into presentation mode. All right. So hello, everybody. Thank you, Heather, for the kind introduction. I'm back again. Hopefully you've all been participating in this government contracting series. We tried to make it fun and interesting. It's a pretty dry subject, but it can be made interesting because it's a great way to increase business and your bottom line. So today, this presentation is about federal contract markets and participating in those markets as a HUBZone certified firm. So welcome today to HUBZone training, a small business guide outlining program eligibility and certification requirements. So here are some of the basic things that you need to consider before pursuing HUBZone or any other economic certification. You have to be prepared for this. It isn't something that you can just arbitrarily say, hey, I'm going to go get my 8A or my HUBZone. You have to be procurement ready. It isn't something that you start your business and then pursue economic certifications. You really have to be a little bit mature. You have to understand your business processes, have some customers already. You build a good reputation and you know what you're doing. You're successfully running a business. Now you're ready to go and take that next step. So being procurement ready, part of that is, can you actually identify what federal agencies that you would possibly purchase to? You know, have you taken those government 101 classes and marketing to the government? Have you generated revenue in your business through private or public sectors, state, hospitals, universities, or everyday businesses? And can you provide accurate financial statements and payroll records? That's huge for HUBZone. And of course, you need to be registered in SAM. That is really critical. And you have a capability statement. And of course, we can help you with all that. The SBDCs and the PTACs, we're free resources to you, and we're here to help you navigate all these systems. Please don't try to do it yourself, and don't pay somebody, because we're free. The government pays us to assist you. So don't pay some for profit to get you into SAM or get a certification when you can have somebody walk you through that process. So just what is the HUBZone program? It's actually designed to help small businesses in eligible urban rural BRAC, which is base realignment and base closure, Indian reservations, and difficult development areas outside of the US, like Guam and the Marianas Islands. So it helps firms gain access to federal procurement opportunities. So HUBZone areas are typically areas of low median household income or high unemployment rates, or both. There are currently about 5,000 HUBZone firms in the program. So not a lot of businesses out there in the big scheme of things, and it really helps you compete in a more protected environment. So competing with or along with every small business in the country, or only the ones that are HUBZone, really gives you a competitive advantage. So the purpose of the program is to assist businesses in historically underutilized businesses, which is what HUBZone means. And the goal is to increase employment opportunities and stimulate capital investment in those struggling, distressed areas. They want to stimulate the economy. So this this also empowers those communities through economic leveraging, and is important to understand that the intent of the program, because it helps us understand the rationale behind regulatory requirements. For example, the HUBZone regulations define the principal office as the location where the greatest number of firms' employees work. Even though the employee works the majority of their time on job sites, they're excluded from the calculation. So if you're a construction firm and you have most of your employees showing up at the job sites, you don't have to count them in that 35% requirement. It's important for you to remember that, because that could really skew your numbers in a bad way. So the principal office for these firms in the service or construction of these business still have to have at least an employee working from the office. Why? Well, it's to spur additional economic growth through economic multiplier effect, meaning if you're working there, you're buying lunch there, you're dropping off your laundry at the dry cleaners, you're going to the bank, you're just doing your business in that HUBZone area, thus stimulating the economy. So, and also for the capital investment, you're going through the process of perhaps restoring abandoned sites. So in my years of doing this, I have seen some really cool old buildings repurposed to house new businesses, even business incubators being created in HUBZones in old manufacturing sites. So it's just a great way to bring new life and vitality to areas that have become obsolete. So you also remember that you have to have the minimum 35% employees residing. That requirement plays a big part in revitalizing these distressed areas, because the HUBZone employers provide employment opportunities to their residents that might otherwise not have had that opportunity. So people residing in these depressed areas, it's like they might not even have a car, but if they're able to walk to work in the HUBZone, now they have gainful employment and they're feeling much better, and the area is going to start to thrive. So also we've seen some employees working for HUBZone firms who were not living in a HUBZone actually move into the HUBZone, further stimulating the area. So we've now seen landlords advertising their residential and commercial buildings as HUBZone locations. So the program works. It really does its job in stimulating the economy. So the SBA regulates and implements the HUBZone program. As such, SBA determines which businesses are eligible for the program and maintain a listing of qualified HUBZone small businesses that can be used by federal agencies to fulfill procurement needs, and adjudicates protests of eligibility regarding HUBZone contracts. So some people can come and say, oh no, they're not in a HUBZone, or they don't have the 35% employee requirement. Well, the SBA steps in and they help with that awful legal protest issue. So once a firm is certified, it appears on SBA's certified list of HUBZone firms, meaning the dynamic small business search. And you know, you've heard me talk about the dynamic small business search, but once you get certified, they hard code that into the dynamic small business search. So when small business liaison officers or primes are looking for HUBZone firms, they're going straight to the DSBS to find those firms. So you want to make sure you're in there. So how do you know if your firm or employees are located in a designated HUBZone? So this is the SBA HUBZone map. You want to make sure you are typing the address in, because it could look like this, and it's like you're not quite sure if you're in there or not. So you want to make sure you're typing the address in, because it will come back and say, yes, you're in a designated area, or no, you're not in a designated or qualified area. But you'll see these pink regions, those are whole counties. For example, Page County here in Virginia, that whole county is HUBZone. So if your business is located in a county that's is a HUBZone, chances are your employees are also residing in a HUBZone. Oops. So the HUBZone eligibility requirements, pretty simple. You has to, of course, be controlled at least 50% by a US citizen or a community development corporation and an agricultural cooperative or Indian tribe. The principal office must be located in a designated HUBZone, and at least 35% of its employees must reside in a HUBZone and not necessarily the same HUBZone. So you could be on one of those border counties that 2 counties are HUBZones, and some of your employees live in another county other than the one that the business is in, but it's still a HUBZone. So it counts as long as they're in a HUBZone, because it's still the same principle. They are spending money where they live and stimulating the economy. So the purpose is still there. So just keep that in mind. It does not have to be the HUBZone that the business is located in. So it's important to remember that different rules apply for tribal governments because they're sovereign nations. So if you're one of those situation areas, community development corporations or agriculture cooperatives, you want to make sure that you are checking to see what the requirements are to get that HUBZone designation. So there is a new rule, a legacy HUBZone. So what they're saying is if an employee has lived at an area for 6 months at the time of certification and continues to live there for another 6 months, they may be considered a HUBZone resident as long as the individual is employed by the firm. So if they move out to a non-HUBZone area, they'll stay HUBZone for a designated period of time. And that is, it's just to help ease the burden of the administration of the residency requirement. Now they will, it's not forever. They still need to go back into a HUBZone area during recertification, but at least it gives you some leeway to work with to make sure that you're staying HUBZone and maintaining the certification. So other eligibility requirements is the business must be directly and unconditionally owned and controlled by at least 51% US citizens. So they'll ask for that documentation. And citizen means person born in the US or naturalized who will become a citizen. So SBA does not consider holders of permanent visas or resident aliens to be citizens. That's important. I've had a few firms not make it. They weren't able to proceed because they were green card holders. So please note that the HUBZone does not look at net worth like AA does, but does require direct ownership. So that is very important to remember. So the principal office, of course, must be located within the HUBZone, and the principal office means the location where the greatest number of the concerned employees at any time, one location to perform their work. So it's where all the action is. It's where the most people go. So it's important to bear that in mind. Some people create these ghost offices in HUBZones, but no one ever goes there. So that's not keeping the spirit of the HUBZone program. It is basically fraud. So you want to be careful that you're not doing that. The office is the office. It's where somebody goes to work every day and does the bidding and does the work and the office work and maintains all the books. So you just want to make sure that it is a legitimate office and not a ghost office. So another new rule is if somebody purchases a building, let's say the building that their business is residing in and signs a long-term lease of 10 years or more for the principal office location, they can maintain their HUBZone eligibility for the 10 years, even if some point that location no longer qualifies as a HUBZone. So let's say you leased a building for 10 years and a year later you lose your HUBZone. You can stay a HUBZone during that 10 years, even though it is no longer a HUBZone. So that's a pretty good rule. That really helps. And if you've bought that property, now you know that you're going to maintain that HUBZone for the at least 10 years. And of course, please note, it doesn't apply to redesignated areas because you already know those are being phased out. Another new rule for expanding into rural areas, and we actually had this happen in Virginia. A governor can request rural areas with high unemployment to be designated a HUBZone. So the census doesn't always catch all of them when they go and redo the census and recalculate HUBZone areas. So Accomack County, which is distressed, never received HUBZone status, but this newest SBA HUBZone map now designates Accomack County as HUBZone. And that was because the governor wrote a letter saying, yeah, we are requesting that Accomack County be added to the HUBZone, and it worked. So we were all pretty excited about that. So more eligibility requirements, of course. At least 35 employees must live in a HUBZone, and it's employees that are full-time, part-time, or other basis. So as long as they are doing 40 hours per month, then they qualify as an employee. And that even if they're coming from a temp agency or you're leasing employees or something through a union agreement, like union workers coming in, they count as long as they're working that 40-hour period. So just hopefully, you know, they're all living in HUBZones, or at least 35% of them. So just try to remember that your employees all count if they are working the 40 hours. So this is an example. Now, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to look at this problem, and then we're going to give you the answer. So a small company that makes widgets is located in an urban area that is not a HUBZone, according to the map. The two owners and their administrative support person spend the majority of their work hours there. The company has a manufacturing site, however, across the street from the headquarters, located in a qualified census tract or HUBZone. The owners and the admin all live in a HUBZone a few miles away. There are 6 employees at the manufacturing site. One of them is part-time and works only 20 hours every week. Only one of the 6 employees who works at the manufacturing site lives in a HUBZone. So this is like, it sounds like an algebra problem, but I ask you, does this company meet the principal office requirement? And remember, this is the principal office requirement. So yes, it does meet the requirement because most of the employees are working at the manufacturing center, which is a HUBZone. So it meets the principal office location. So don't think because your company headquarters is not located in a HUBZone disqualifies you. If you have a manufacturing plant that has the bulk of your employees showing up every day in a HUBZone, then yes, you meet the requirement. So the 35% employee example. So now this is the residency requirement. So Company Inc. is a small company that makes widgets. Their headquarters is located in an urban area that is not a HUBZone according to the map. So it's the same basis as the principal office location. So Two owners and administrative support person spend a majority of their work hours there. Company has a manufacturing site across the street from the headquarters located in a qualified census tract. The owners and admin all live in a hub zone a few miles away. There are 6 employees at the manufacturing site. One of them is part-time and works only 20 hours every week. Only one of the 6 employees who works at the manufacturing site lives in the hub zone. So does this company meet the 35% requirement? Yes, they do, because the over 35% of the employees are in the hub zone. They're they're living in the hub zone. So you can see there's 3, 4, 5 of them are outside the hub zone, but 4 of them are in the hub zone. They live in the hub zone. So it has met the 35% residency requirement. So here's some common mistakes that people make in their application process that can easily be avoided. So the first thing you need to do is, of course, go through your Salmon Dynamic Small Business Search and make sure it is updated with all the proper information, including addresses, because everything needs to match. If you send, let's say your articles of organization and it has a different address than in SAM, you're going to get a problem. So remember that the application times out. Each page must be completed within 60 minutes. If you time out, it doesn't save it. You have to go back and start all over again. So it can get pretty frustrating. Just get all your information in there at the very beginning. And some people have problems accessing the general login system. And that's the first thing. You just need to make sure that you're in there and registered before you start the actual application. You didn't do the calculation to see if 35% of your employees are located in a hub zone. And you do not have your documents prepared. So you want to make sure that every single document you're going to need is uploaded on your computer and ready to go. And a lot of people don't go into the SBA's website and read all the eligibility requirements for HUBZone. There's a huge documentation list in there that you can go in and see what makes you eligible or not. So make sure you do your due diligence. It makes it a whole lot easier and you get approved a lot faster if you have everything prepared. And speaking of that, yes, make sure you are organized and prepared, because the number one reason for delay in certification is the support docs weren't there. I mean, they might have come back and asked for things because it wasn't there and you're slow in getting it back to them. And sometimes they'll just kick it back and deny it because people aren't quick enough to get them the information that was required. So in a couple, they think once they submit and get that email from SBA that it's confirmed, they think they're approved. They don't realize that they're going to ask for documents and now you got to go back in and update the documents. So this particular certification is you go in and you fill out the certification and submit it, but you don't submit your docs. They come back and they tell you what documents they want to see. So you want to make sure you are paying attention to your email and responding when they send you your electronic verification date and you confirm it, and then you go in and start adding your documents. So make sure you have that all assembled before you start. So applications usually take about 60 days from start to finish to approval. So the actual certification process. So this is just due diligence. It's just being organized and doing it one step at a time. And HUBZone, unlike EDWLSB, WLSB has a great support desk. Their help desk is excellent. You always get a live human. They're always able to answer your questions, and they're just really great at helping you through this process. So don't be afraid to ask if you are struggling with some of this. So just make sure you're addressing any issues such as multiple locations. That's a big deal. little things that you think the analyst is going to have a problem with. So a lot of people have multiple locations around the country and they have to address that, or they're affiliated with another firm. That's another one I've seen get bounced because it's an issue with SBA when you're affiliated, because you could be affiliated with a firm that's not in a HUBZone and they think that that firm is trying to ride your coattails with the HUBZone certification. So this is SBA's GLS system. This is where the HUBZone application lives, and you must first register for an account in the GLS. So when you go into SBA, you'll see GLS login, and you're going to have to fill out this information and be registered in the GLS before you can access the HUBZone certification process. So in submitting your docs, once your HUBZone app is submitted, SBA will review it, and if it's complete and accepted, it will request documents to be supporting of your app. And this is your EVD. That is electronic verification date. That is very important for you to remember, because once your application is verified, you'll receive another email within 3 days. And this is where a lot of people miss it. They think the EVD is one and done, and they say, well, that was easy, but it's not. It's just the beginning. So within 3 days, you're going to get an email saying what documents they want you to submit to them. So have your documents ready to go, and just make sure you're moving through it. You're putting everything in there as it's called out by the SBA analyst. So the actual electronic verification step, this is to make sure that it's completed. So you're going to fill in all the steps. You're going to put all your documents in there, and that is the electronic verification step, not the electronic verification date. This is the step. So it's the part where you attest that all the information is true and correct and accurate. So you want to make sure that everything is in there that they requested. And then we're going to go through how to actually label them correctly as well. So SBA, if they decline you, you have to wait 90 days before you can submit again. So supporting documentation. They're going to look for principal office documents, the 35% HUBZone residency, and ownership and control. Those are the 3 areas they're going to want to see documented. So once you get your EVD, you're going to be given an application number. When you are labeling your documents, make sure that application number is there and the name of the principal office. So if you're XYZ Consulting, it's going to be your application number and XYZ Consulting. Make sure you're doing this right, because if it's labeled incorrectly, if you don't put that application number in there, they are just going to kick it back. So it's important, like with any socioeconomic certification, labeling is very important. They will bounce it in a heartbeat if they can't understand the labeling of the documents that you've uploaded. So the principal office location, what they're looking for is a lease or rental agreement or deed, a utility bill, and the firm's location list. So that's if you have multiple firms. Just remember that they need to be fully executed, and the name of the business and the address must be on there and match all other documentation. So on the lease or rental agreement, once again, fully executed in the name of the business means everybody has signed. It's just not a lease that you pulled off the internet. It has to be valid and in effect at the time of your EVD. That's the other one. Make sure that it's got the proper dates on it. If you work out of your personal residence, submit your lease or deed with explanation stating as such, I work out of my home. So you still have to provide that information with your address and your business address on there. A utility bill, landlines, gas, electric, water, sewer. These are all utility bills that will work in determining your place of address. So that utility bill needs to be within the billing cycle, the most recent one that you have. And it's got to be within at least 30 days of that EVD. So don't give them anything that's too old or it will get kicked back. If you cannot provide a utility bill because they're included in your lease, then you need to show the lease and have that highlighted that it includes that. If the lease doesn't say that for some reason and you do not have utility bills, you're going to have to write a pretty compelling letter of explanation as to why your utility bills are either free, not included in your lease, or whatever. So you need to make sure that you are addressing that. So your location list, there is a tool actually on SBA's HUBZone site that you can use to fill out your location list. When you have multiple locations, it can become pretty problematic, but hopefully that those location lists are just, we'll say, satellite offices. Most of the time they're not in hub zones, so you're relying on your primary office to be the hub zone, but you have to create that separate document and title it the firm's location list and make sure that you have all the information in there that they need to analyze it. So this is an example of what that would look like. Your principal office, the time of day it operates, address, and the hours and names of the people who work there. Jane Smith, 20 hours per week. So make sure that the information is complete, because you don't want to give that analyst any reason to kick it back. So employee residency, they use payroll records that will be asked for. You know, like in QuickBooks, you can do your payroll record right off of that. And identification and proof of residence. So there's going to have to be a HUBZone map pulled for every single employee in a HUBZone. And you're going to have to pull it, print it, put their name on it, and have their address on there showing on the HUBZone map, showing clearly that it is in a designated HUBZone area or qualified HUBZone area. You have to do the same for the business as well. So you're going to be printing out a lot of HUBZone maps and then scanning them into your computer. Do not miss this step. It's important that you have those HUBZone maps in there showing your employee's residency and the place of business. You're also going to need to create an employee list and a contact tractor list if that's applicable. So the SBA accepts payroll records and payroll summaries and reports. Just make sure they're legitimate. If you need to, have them come from your accountant. That's always good. A third-party verification of payroll records always carries a lot of weight, but it has to have their names, the number of hours that they work for each pay period, and the wages earned for each pay period, and the pay period's beginning and ending dates. Do your most recent one. So don't pull payroll reports when you first start this odyssey, and then by the time you go to submit docs, they're already a couple pay periods past being your most recent. Always do those last. So make sure that you want to include whether the officers are on the firm or on there. You know, you want to make sure you're saying what they do, what their position is there, and the hours, and including the officers if you're incorporated, and how they're compensated. So you need to show all individuals on the payroll, including the ones through the temp agency. So if you're bringing in 1099 consultants, you need to show those as well. So you just want to make sure that you are documenting every employee that you're counting for that HUBZone and the non-HUBZone, because you've got to get to that 35%. So they pretty much review the payroll records, and they want to see the most recently completed payroll period. So make sure, once again, that you're doing that right before you push the button here. If you need to wait a few days for payroll to come out, then do that. You don't want it to get old, because by the time the analyst gets to read it, a month may have gone by. So make sure you're giving them the most recent. So this is the tough one. And this is why a lot of firms say, you know what, it's just not worth it. They might have 100 employees that they've got to get either their driver's license, some sort of identification card, voter registration card, proving their address. So that's why a lot of them say it's just not worth it. I'm not going to go through this, but it is worth it. So yeah, it's a little bit of administrative burden, but you can do it. And most employers already have that on hand. And some people, you know, their driver's licenses don't match where they live. So that's when you have to use something else like a lease agreement or mortgage statement, utility bill, change of address card. There's ways to get this done and think outside the box. So don't give up because of this little administrative burden. Just put it on somebody, task someone in the organization to collect this information from the employees. So they can always write, you can say they're living with their mom and dad, and they don't have a driver's license or not registered to vote. It's like, it happens. They need to just write a statement and say, yeah, I'm to the best of my ability. Yeah, this is my address. This is where I live. And I declare under penalty of perjury under the laws of the US that I'm not lying. So it works. In a worst case scenario, hopefully you don't have to go through that. But I've seen it happen and I've seen it accepted. Once again, if they're with the parents, just get the utility bill in the parent's name, and they'll have to get a statement from their parents saying that they live there. Make sure you are pulling the HUBZone maps. Every employee needs to have the HUBZone map with their name on it and their address, saying that it's in a qualified HUBZone area. And make sure that you're doing the employee list. Use the workbook tool, the one for locations. You can modify for employees. You need their complete name, what position it is, part-time, full-time, temporary. Everything needs to be filled out. Don't leave anything as a guess, because if it's not there, they're going to kick it back and it's going to slow down the process. And the contractors. So if you have independent contractors working for you, you need to show that contractor agreements, invoices that you might have from them, the proof of payment that you paid them, their 1099s. And this, you can collect business cards from them. So do they have email addresses that have been assigned to them with your email tag? So there's some different ways to do this. Just make sure that you are giving this contractor list to the SBA with all the pertinent information included. So ownership and control, that's pretty easy. It's like with any other socioeconomic certification, you have to prove that you're a citizen. There's a birth certificate, valid US passport, make sure it is not expired, a certificate of citizenship or naturalization, and please do not ever send your social security card, ever. Some corporate documents, if you're a corporation, your DBA, if it's applicable, your articles of incorporation that you would get from the Corporation Commission of Virginia, your corporate bylaws and any amendments, stock certificates, front and back, stock ledgers or stock register. You really, when you're a corporation, you need to give a lot of background information. And that's with any socioeconomic certification. It's just a higher level of administrative burden when you're a corporation to prove that you're actually in existence. So just make sure that you have everything there, your certificate of existence as well from the state saying, yeah, I'm here. I pay my dues annually to the state and I am in good standing. LLC is a little bit easier. Articles of organization, which are from the Corporation Commission, and your certificate of organization, as well as an operating agreement. Make sure that that operating agreement, if you are a single member LLC, that operating agreement states you are a single member LLC, because a lot of people pull an operating agreement off the internet and they pull the wrong one. If they're 100% owner, they just pull an operating agreement off and it will have language in there for voting rights and members plural. And the SBA saying, hey, well, where's everybody else? So just make sure you're pulling the right operating agreement and make sure your certificate of organization has that Secretary of the State seal on it. So if you are a partnership and a sole proprietor, just make sure your DBA certificate is there if applicable. You'll have to have a partnership agreement and any amendments and show that. And the sole proprietor, most recent 1040 Schedule C, if available, that proves that you actually have a legitimate business. So some other documents that might help, if you are a franchise, you're going to have to provide a copy of the franchise agreement. If you're owned by a employee stock ownership or an ESOP, you need to provide a copy of that ESOP plan or trust agreement. And of course, citizenship documentation must be submitted for all trustees and all beneficiaries of that ESOP. So maintaining your HUBZone, that's sometimes a challenge because things change. Ownership could change, business structure, their principal office, people come and go. You just want to make sure that you are notifying the SBA if there is any material change to your situation. And when you're recertifying, make sure everything is in place. Everything is as it should be, and everything matches as it was before. You want to be able to breeze through that, but stuff happens. I like to see people having more than the 35% as sort of like a fudge factor. Have at least maybe 45% of your employees living in a HUBZone. So if somebody leaves, you can still meet that 35% mark. So they want to see that you have that incorporated into a business plan as well. So you're going to have to consider that. And they really recommend that you subscribe to the HUBZone news. That's why we have it here, because any alerts coming up on changes to the program that might benefit you or hurt you, you want to make sure that you are following up on that. And if your principal office is in an area that becomes redesignated, you have 3 whole years to come up with a new address. So I know that in Loudoun County, there was a incubator there that was all in a HUBZone, and they closed that incubator. And everybody had to go find another office in a HUBZone. So they all had to notify SBA that this happened, and that is a material change. So just make sure that you are staying on top of what's happening. And if you lose that HUBZone, if you become redesignated, then you've got 3 whole years to find another HUBZone to get into. So here's some application pitfalls. This is what we see happening the most. People missing the deadline to verify. I mean, they get the email and it goes to junk and they miss it, or they don't know what it is and they ignore it. It just goes away and you have to start over again. And then failure to submit the required documentation after you verify. they get the documentation list and never upload everything. They just miss that. Or they format or label it wrong and it's incorrect and out of compliance. And of course, failure to submit within 3 days of the verification. You got to get them in there. And remember, it times out. You have to have everything ready to go and get through that before it times it out and you have to start over. And failure to talk about any affiliates. So if, let's say you and your brother both own businesses, 2 separate businesses, you're both on each other's boards, and you are the only one applying for HUBZone. Well, you are technically affiliated with your brother's firm because you sit on his board, and he might not be in a HUBZone. So you really need to address that. You need to think about who are you affiliated with and how does that impact your HUBZone. So I see a lot of them kick back for that very reason. And failure to respond to a request for additional information. Sometimes the analyst will come back and say, hey, I want to see this, this, and this. And people don't respond. I don't know how that happens, but they miss that 5-day deadline and it ends up getting kicked back because no one responded. And then failure to sign or check the ownership category. You really need to make sure that you are stating you are indeed the owner. So to get assistance with HUBZone, like I said, this is a great help desk. Of all the socioeconomic certifications, HUBZone has a great help desk, and they answer the phone and they respond quickly, and they're just really easy to work with. They're very understanding, and they'll help you through any issues that you're having. So any questions? I know that was a lot of information. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I am going to stop the recording.